What is good, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm back on the SP404 Mark II and I'm going to talk about a feature which I can't believe I haven't spoken about yet, and it's the pitch on the 404 Mark II. Now there's a lot of speculation about this when it came out, coming from the 404 SX, because there wasn't really any good pitching options on that device. We do have it in this one and it's a massive improvement. So today I'm going to take you through everything in pitch mode, and I'm quite glad that I waited actually, because after the 2.0 update some new updates came to this as well, so I can explain all those as well as the things that were originally on the box. So yeah, probably one of the most used things as beat makers that we need. We need to be able to repitch samples all the time, so it's definitely a good thing that this is here. So let's get this on the table and let's do a full walkthrough of how this works and how it sounds. Okay guys, so here we are at the device and it's really simple to get into pitch mode. All you have to do is press this button here that says pitch and speed. Now the one weird thing to note about this is that the volume is also in this area as well. So if you want to individually change the volume of a sample or a pad, then you need to come into pitch and speed as well and do that there. So there are a few different ways of changing the pitch on the SP404 Mark II now, which is actually really handy. The first one, as you can see here, it already says is vinyl mode, and what this is going to do is pretty much emulate when you change the tempo on a turntable. So if you've ever owned a turntable or had access to a turntable, they usually have a pitch slider on them, and what this will do is alter the pitch, but at the same time it will change the speed of the sample or the record as well. So this is useful because you get a really smooth tone, but the downside is that you have to sacrifice your tempo. So for example, I've got this sample loaded up here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the pitch down a bit, so I'm going to put that to -5, and you can see that in the middle, hopefully that's at -5 now. And before I press that, you can see here now that the speed has changed to 74.9% of the original tempo of that sample. So if I go ahead and press that again now, we're going to hear a much lower pitch, but it's going to be a lot slower, so check this out. So that does sound amazing. I love pitching down samples, but you have to consider that that might mean that it doesn't fit with the rhythm or the tempo of the beat you're trying to make anymore. So that's got its plus sides and its bad sides. I think the best practical use of this really is if you do that first and then make the beat to that tempo. I think that's a good way of going about it with this particular setting. But luckily we do have the option of doing it the other way around. So I'm just going to come out and cancel all those parameters. And a really easy and quick way to do this is if you press escape, and we know we're on pad 1 still. If we do shift and 6, which is init param, you might not be able to see that, but it just says init param under this pad here. There we go, I'll just move it for you so you can see. You press that and it says current sample parameters init, and it means basically reset them all back to what they were in the first place. Are you sure? And I'm going to press OK. And now when I go back to pitch and speed, you can see that they're all back to normal again. So that's a really easy way of resetting all your settings. So how do we get into this other option where we can change the pitch of the sample but not the tempo? So what we need to do is hold shift, and you can see vinyl here, it says yes, and we're going to change it to no. Now this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, because there's actually two different settings here. If I keep using the value wheel, you can see ensemble and backing, and then off. So I'm going to start with off, and what I'm going to do now is down pitch this again by 5. So we're in non-vinyl mode basically now, and hopefully what this is going to do is down pitch the sample, but you can see here the speed hasn't changed this time, so we're still at 100% speed, and it's saying that that's BPM of 90. So let's go ahead and press this and see what it sounds like. So you can hear that it's changed the pitch of the sample, but it's not made it any slower. So that's a really nice feature. The only downside to that is that you do start to get these kind of weird artifacts on your sample. So it's not going to sound as clean as doing it the other way. But I'd say it's just about good enough to get away with. I think once you've layered everything else over the top, then you probably won't really notice. So let's go into these two other options. So what are these? These ensemble and backing settings. This is where you make use of what's called the vary mode, so you can turn it off and not use it at all, which we've just demonstrated there. If I go to backing, according to the manual, what this is going to do is it's going to make it a lot easier for things that have a very sort of harsh attack and a noticeable decay. So for example, drums are going to be really good for using the backing setting. So if I go ahead and change this to backing, let's give this a listen and see what it sounds like. Bearing in mind this is actually a melodic sample, it's not drums, so let's hear what it does to the sample. Sounds okay. It's added some weird kind of artifacts, and that's probably because it's not really intended for this particular use. It's more for drums and stuff like that. So probably not the best for this particular application. And then if we go to ensemble, so ensemble is basically the opposite. It's going to be more suitable for sounds that have long and smooth tones. And it says, for example, like choral groups and strings. So technically this should be a bit better for this application that we're doing here. And one thing to note about using this particular mode as well, that it doubles the amount of voices that the sample uses. So if it's mono, it will do twice as many voices, and if it's stereo, it uses 4 times as many voices. So if you are worried about polyphony, you do have to be careful that this mode is adding quite a lot of voices to what you're doing. So let's see what this sounds like now. Yeah, and I would say that that's doing a little bit of a better job. There seems to be less artifacts on that, and it sounds quite smooth as well. So if you use that along with some drums, I'm sure that would sound pretty much okay. Okay guys, so I got to editing and realised I definitely should have put some examples of this working on drums as well. So I'm sorry if this looks a bit different, but I've gone back and started a new recording. And I've got a drum loop loaded in here so I can show you guys this working on this as well. So this is the drum loop with no pitch, 100% speed, and this is 90 BPM. And in vinyl mode, just like the sample, if we pitch that down, we're going to get a nice smooth change in pitch, but we're going to get a slower speed. So you can see that's changing it down to 74.9. I've done -5. And let's see what that sounds like. So it sounds really nice, but that might not be the tempo that we want. So let's say we want to keep it at the full tempo that we were working with before. Let's go ahead and use the non-vinyl mode. So I'm not going to use backing or ensemble. I'm going to go through them all like I did with the sample. So shift, and I'm going to scroll across all the way to vinyl no and vary off. Now this is saying it's +3 semitones. So let's change that down and let's do -5 again. And let's see what that sounds like with it keeping the speed at 100%. And I really do think that's done quite a good job of that. There's not really any artifacts I can hear on that, and the drums actually have a much nicer sort of texture to them as well. So yeah, really like that. But let's try the ensemble mode and the backing mode as well. So let's try backing first of all. And then let's try ensemble. And I'd say out of those 3, that's definitely the worst sounding. It was really difficult to tell the difference between vary being off and vary being at backing. I think vary off on the drums just seems to work okay anyway, outside of if you've got vinyl mode turned off as well. So I think my recommendation for drums really based on that is that you either just have it as vinyl no and vary off, or if you're happy for the tempo of the loop to change, then you can go ahead and just use the vinyl mode and get a really nice smooth change in pitch doing it that way. Okay guys, that's it for this one, so I hope this gives you a really good idea of how the pitch works on the SP404 Mark II. Like I said at the start of the video, this is a vast improvement on the SX and the A because we didn't really have the option, apart from DJ Looper mode, which was probably the best option that we had, and even that was a bit ropey to say the least. So really good that this has come out. If you think there should be any more improvements to this, then let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And also, how much you use pitching, I'd like to know that as well. I pretty much use it on every sample that I put into the box, so it is a really important part of my workflow. But again, I'd be really interested to hear how much you guys use it. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Don't forget to check out SP Vids for all the ways you can support me, the beat packs, etc. And there's loads of links in the description below as well of other ways you can support me too. I would really, really appreciate that. It keeps me going doing these videos. I'll be back with more content soon. Keep making beats. Peace.